Hello folks, and a warm welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to show you a little bit about my Seestar S30 smart telescope. You may remember that a few months ago, or just before Christmas, I mentioned that I'd got one on back order, and this thing duly turned up in the end of January. And since then I've had, I think, 2 or 3 nights when I've been able to go out and use it. So I thought I'd take you through one night's imaging session and show you some of the images that I've managed to get out of this thing, starting from complete scratch, never having had it before. Yeah, so spoiler alert is this thing's absolutely insane what it can produce. It costs, I think, £360 in the UK, about $350 in the US, which I paid for out of my own money, incidentally. This is a totally unbiased view. And I can't believe the images that it produces. I'll just put a couple up here as a bit of a spoiler, very briefly, of images that I've taken over the 2 nights I've done deep sky stuff with it. And you'll get a longer look at these, plus a host of others, at the end of the video. My name's John, and I make videos on camping, walking and astronomy. If you like what you see in this video, then please check my channel out, as you may find others that interest you there. But in the meantime, let's crack on with this video. So the Seestar is a very small telescope, mount and camera combined. The tripod is this little diddy thing here. Now this means that you sit the telescope on the ground or on a table, and the problem for me is if I put it on the ground, I've got quite high fences, houses around me, trees around me, and it means that objects in the sky have to be pretty high up before I can capture them. So what I tend to do is to screw my Seestar onto the tripod that I use for my Star Adventurer. Basically a heavyish weight photographic tripod that lifts the whole thing up to about the same height as my face, and it means that I can pick objects off that are around 30 to 35 degrees up in the sky minimum. The reason that I bought the Seestar was, what I've found is that we've got so few clear nights here in the UK over the last year or so, but you get quite a lot of opportunities where there's about an hour's worth of clear, and it's simply not worth taking out my main astro rig in order to get it out, get it all set up, and then find 10 minutes later the clouds are coming in. So this was somewhat dampening my enthusiasm for astrophotography. With the Seestar, you set it up in about 5 minutes and you're imaging straight away. The way I've used the Seestar up to now is at very much its most basic level. It takes multiple images of an object and stacks them one on top of the other within itself, and this is a task that I normally have to carry out in a separate piece of software. And there are 2 ways that you can do this. One is you simply let the Seestar do the stacking itself as it goes along, which is called live stacking, and the other way is that you let the Seestar collect each individual frame. You then can either stack those within the Seestar itself, or you can take them off and stack them in your own software program. The advantage of using the individual frames is they're what are called FITS frames, which are basically a higher resolution than your average JPEG frame. When you do the live stacking, you just end up with a JPEG at the end of it. And for the purposes of me finding out how the Seestar works and stuff, I've just been doing the live stacking with JPEGs. The advantage of doing it the way that I'm doing it at the moment is that if you're new to astrophotography and you know absolutely nothing about it, basically the Seestar does most of the process for you, and all you need to do is either adjust the contrast and brightness and such like, either within the Seestar app itself, or you can do that within whatever photo editing app you happen to have on your phone. So this video's not intended to be an instructional video. There are loads of those on YouTube, and I'll put a link to the one that I use, the kind of unboxing and initial setup video, which incidentally is pretty straightforward. It only takes about 10-15 minutes to do. What I'm going to do is to take you through one night's worth of imaging. I will show, but a lot of the video will actually be my phone screen, where I'm showing you the live stack as it builds up, the denoising process that you can do within the Seestar. So it's instructional in that respect, in that you can see what I do to actually have an imaging session. I'll then put some pictures that you get straight out of the Seestar without any specialist astrophotography processing or knowledge whatsoever, just to show you as a complete newbie what you can expect to get out of the device. And right at the end, I will show you the images that I've got where I've taken the base JPEG out of the Seestar and done a little bit of more specialist astrophotography processing to create what, in my opinion, in some instances at least, are absolutely stunning pictures. And it's worth pointing out at this juncture that the picture that I will put up of the Orion Nebula, somebody on one of the Facebook groups associated with the Seestar accused me of putting up a fake picture. Whilst I was a bit miffed that the person thought what I'd done was fake, secretly I was quite pleased that I'd actually managed to produce an image that was good enough that somebody thought it was a fake. I don't think this individual has got a Seestar or got any astrophotography knowledge whatsoever, because they'd never posted on the group. Yeah, maybe he's just one of these troll type people. But yeah, nonetheless, I was sort of thinking, I've created a picture that people are accusing me of being fake, and I can assure you that's not the case. So yeah, anyway, let's trundle on with the video. So the first thing to do is to enter the Seestar app. Just give it a second to load and find your location and stuff off the phone, and then press connect, and then it will log on to the Bluetooth network that's set up by the Seestar. Then you can open up the Wi-Fi, and I use the slower of the two speeds in order to get a greater distance between the Seestar and myself. This means that I can sit indoors basically, and about 5 meters away from the Seestar, and everything works fine. So it attempts to log on to the Seestar internet, and it always says connected without internet, which is true, and that's what you need, because there is no internet coming off the Seestar. You now end up back in the app, and I press the open arm in order to get the Seestar ready and up and running. And it takes about a minute, in fact, for it to open the arm properly. Now, if you press on the Seestar image at the top of the screen, it takes you into basic settings, and in here for this evening I'm going to put the anti-dew function on. Now going into advanced settings, and for the purposes of today's session I'm not going to save each frame, I'm just going to use the live stacking feature. Now clicking on the Sky Atlas button at the bottom of the screen, I'm going to search for a bright star. In order to do that, you click on Objects at the top of the screen and scroll along until you see Named Stars. The reason I'm looking at named stars instead of going directly to the target that I want to image is I want the Seestar to do its plate solving and its focusing and its horizontal calibration on a very easy bright target. So picking a bright star is a really good idea for this, and I'm going to pick the star Betelgeuse, which sits above some trees and houses, so it needs to be well clear of any obstructions. And the list appears to be organised in terms of how high in the sky the individual stars are. So you just scroll through having a feeling for roughly how high your star is, and there's Betelgeuse there. You're now back in the Star Atlas and you press Go To, and the Seestar will then go from wherever it thinks it is at the moment to where it thinks your target Betelgeuse is. And you can see the little blue square moving across the screen towards Betelgeuse, and that's the telescope itself slewing towards the target. And when it gets there, it takes a photograph of the sky just to confirm that it's on target, and it usually isn't quite on target, so it makes a couple of alterations, and this is called plate solving, until it's satisfied that it sits right smack over the target that you're after. So here we are, it's found it, and once it's done that, it goes to the live view. It then carries out a horizontal calibration, which basically means that it takes some pictures on either side of your target and tries to work out where horizontal is. And this can take a minute or so to finish, and you see your target kind of appearing in the screen and then disappearing from the screen and then coming back again as the Seestar moves slightly from one side to the other in order to fathom out what level actually means. And once it's sorted that out, it will move to the target and aim to center the target in the middle of the screen. And there we are, we can see Betelgeuse right smack in the center of the screen. Now it's going to take some dark calibration frames that it uses to process the stacked images, and this takes a minute or so to carry on through, so I'll speed this bit up. And once it's done that, it goes through its auto-focusing routine, and here it changes the focus backwards and forwards and attempts to find the point where the stars are at their smallest and their sharpest. And this is the reason why whenever I start an astro session with the Seestar, I always go to a bright star to do all this basic setting up type process, because it's way easier for it to do auto focusing when it's got a bright star to pick on. And the Seestar only does this initialization process once at the beginning of an imaging session. From here on in, you can move targets and not have to bother with any of that, and it all works brilliantly well. So here I've just let it take a couple of exposures in live view, which it will stack just to get it started. Then you press the red button to stop the recording process. And now go to the plough icon in the bottom right corner, which takes you back into the sky atlas. You now select the object you want to image, so you click on objects, and that brings up an objects list, and there are multiple ways of finding what you want to do. Today I'm going to go for M42, the Orion Nebula. So you simply click on the target, M42, and it comes up with a little bit of a description, and then if you press locate target position, it will show you where in the sky that target is, so you can make sure that it's high enough and above trees and that sort of thing. And once you're happy that yes, this is the target that you want to actually image, you then press the go to button in the bottom of the screen. And here you can see the blue square that represents where the telescope is, honing in on M42 and trying to identify whether it's in the right place where it's doing its little bit of plate solving. And it's found it quite happily. Now M42 is such a bright object, it's naked eye object, that you can see it straight away in the screen. And it's nicely centered. This isn't normal. If you're looking for a dim galaxy or something, you might not see it for a couple of images. But now it's taking its 10-second exposures and doing a live stack to gradually improve the quality of the image. And your main debate now really is how long are you going to leave it for in order to create the best image possible. But you can see from the process I've just shown you that to find the object that you actually want to image is extremely straightforward, provided you've done the little bit of background work with the initial setup on a star rather than what you want to image, because in theory you could just go straight to M42 and try and do the initialization from that. But if you're looking to image a fairly dim target, you're likely to run into problems there. So for the sake of spending somewhere between 3 and 5 minutes of setting the Seestar up on a star that you don't really want to image, I think that saves you a lot of pain and heartache in the long run. So we'll speed this data acquisition part up a little bit, but it's possible to zoom in and out on the screen just by pinching it just to get a better view. And the other thing you can do is change the contrast and brightness and such like. And you access this by pressing the little slidey bar icon at the top on the right, and that enables you to mess about with brightness, contrast and saturation to make the image look more or less how you want it to look while it's stacking up. But you can see it's beginning to produce quite a nice image even after only 4 or 5 minutes worth of exposures. So we'll speed this next 5 minutes or so up a little bit. And what I tend to do is every 10 minutes or so, I take a denoised version of the stacked image, because the images themselves are fairly noisy at this point. You access denoise via the little magic wand icon. So when you press that magic wand, it denoises the image that you've stacked so far. And this takes about 15 seconds, but I've found it's anywhere between 15 and 25. Sometimes I think it's not going to do it and I start panicking. But what you end up with is an image that the noise has all been removed from the background sky in particular. This denoised image, you can mess about a bit with the saturation and brightness and contrast to make it look like how you want it to look. And when you've got it looking like how you want it, you then press the export button at the top of the screen and it will send a copy of that image to your phone. You just press download after that and it's done it. And you get back to the live screen just by pressing the back arrow at the top of the screen, and you'll see when you get back that the stacking's been carrying on in the background while you've been enjoying yourself messing about with the denoised image. So you now just really want to decide how long you want to do your imaging for. And I decided, I think this was coming along much better than I thought it was going to, that I was going to do maybe between 30 and 40 minutes on it. So I just let it do its thing. And whilst it was doing all of this, I was sitting inside about 5 meters away from the Seestar, just watching all this happen on my phone. It's quite mesmerising, whilst having my dinner and watching the TV. So there was no real input for me from here on in, really. And after about 20 minutes, I decided to do another denoised version of the image just to see how that was getting on. And I must say the results were quite pleasing. I just again had a little bit of time faffing about with contrast and such like, and then I saved the 20-minute image and went back to the live view for another 10 minutes or so. So I did another denoised image at what was now about half an hour's worth of exposure, and I was very pleased with the result, I must say, even with the basic processing and whatnot that you can do on your phone. So yeah, I decided to call it a day on that target after half an hour and saved my final denoised image, which is a JPEG, by the way, just for your interest. So having been very happy with that, I pressed the plough icon in the bottom right to take me to the Sky Atlas and went into the objects list to look for my next target, and I was interested in M81 and M82, and so you end up back in the Sky Atlas, and I fiddled around with the framing a little bit here. I didn't do any kind of mosaic-y stuff, I just moved the frame around so that I got M81 and M82 within the target of the scope, and press go to, and off the Seestar trundled. You can see the little blue rectangle moving past Mars at the moment, heading in the direction of M81. So it now reckons to have found M81, and it will attempt to centre itself to get the framing that I've asked for. So this usually takes a couple of goes of mini plate solving, and once it's satisfied that it's bang on what I want, it will flick out of this view and go into the live view, and here it seemed to take one or two images before I actually saw something on the screen. I'm not sure whether that's normal or not, but that seems to happen to me quite a lot. So we're just coming round to I think the second image now, and there we are. We can just about see M81 on the right and M82 on the left in the center of the screen. So now I'm just going to duplicate the process that I did with the Orion Nebula and collect half an hour to 40 minutes worth of data. So here's the live stack after half an hour, and you can see the two galaxies are coming out very nicely. Thank you very much. The image is still fairly noisy, which I would expect it to be with 10-second exposures. So here I'm going to do another denoise on them to create what hopefully will be a much better image. So once I'd spent a little bit of time messing about with the brightness and contrast of the denoise 30-minute image, it was time to save that image to my phone. So I downloaded it, and time to go on to another target while it was still surprisingly clear outside. And incidentally, if you want to look at the images that you've taken so far, these are stored either on your phone, but they're also in the Seestar itself. You click on the down arrow button and go into the My album, and there you can see all the pictures that you've taken so far. So quite frankly, I was astonished at the quality of the images that I've been getting out of the Seestar just by using the live stacked images, which creates a JPEG, and the denoise on that, again internal to the Seestar. Yeah, so I just couldn't believe it. So I went on this evening to do the Flaming Star Nebula, where I think I did about 40 minutes worth of exposures, and then I quickly banged out some open clusters in Auriga, and these only had 5 minutes or so's worth of exposure just to see what they'd be like, and that marked the end of this night's particular imaging session. So here are the results that I got straight from the Seestar from this particular evening's session. And so they're live stacked in Seestar, and then had the Seestar's own denoising done on them. And these are just the JPEG images. There are much more sophisticated methods that you can use to do the stacking that aren't actually that difficult, but I didn't want to get involved in them in this video. But as you can see, really, somebody with absolutely no knowledge of astrophotography whatsoever can use the Seestar to develop some quite good pictures. And overall, I was mad keen to now take some of these images and do a little bit of post-processing that I would normally do for astro stuff. So across 2 evenings and 1 day, I imaged multiple objects of different types. So I tried to pick a variety of different objects of differing sizes as well. And what I then did was took the denoised JPEG that's coming from the Seestar and put that into Photoshop to do a little bit of the tweaks that I do for my normal astro images that come off my main rig. I had to convert the JPEGs into TIFF files in Photoshop in order to then put those images into a program that removes the stars for me, because that will only accept TIFF files. With the stars removed, you can then fiddle around with the levels and curves, essentially contrast type adjustments, without causing bloating of the stars. And this helps to bring out the very, very faint traces and details in the nebulae. Then you can put the stars back in again and produce your final image. And these images are the ones that I'm going to show you in a moment. They are better than the ones that come off the Seestar, but if you're an absolute beginner, the ones that come off the Seestar are quite frankly mind-blowing anyway. My conclusions about the Seestar S30 is it's met and more than exceeded my wildest expectations. Bearing in mind that I'm only messing about with JPEGs at the moment, I'm not using any of the higher quality files that I could also use. For imaging the sun and the moon, it's good, but not like mind-blowing. I would say if your main interest is to image sunspots and image the craters on the moon, then you might be better off with the bigger brother of the S30, which is called an S50, because the resolution of the craters of the moons in particular is very slightly wishy-washy when you blow it up. But if you're just taking a picture of the moon as a whole, it's perfectly good, and I'm pleased about having been able to take pictures of the sun, because I've never been able to do that before. Neither the S50 nor the S30 are any good on planets. The S50 you can just about get Jupiter and maybe bits of Saturn out of it. The S30 you simply can't. The field of view is too wide and the target is too small. So again, if you want planets, then the S30 isn't your thing. But if you're interested in taking photographs of nebulae and large galaxies, then I think the S30 is unbeatable. Even small galaxies, some of the detail in there you're not getting because the galaxy is too small in the field of view. But I would say it's comparable to the wide field views that I get out of my main rig, which costs £2,000, so it's like 6 times more expensive than the Seestar, and 10 times more complex to process. So yeah, all in all, my mind is just blown by the Seestar and the images that come out with it. So I'm going to put those up now, which I hope you like, and thank you very much if you persevered to this point in the video, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Take care. Cheerio.